What's good, everybody? Welcome back. It's Wednesday, December 18th. We're talking a little Week 16 NFL slate breakdown here on Breaking Bet. My guy Eric Pauly coming back from Florida, looking tan, spent a little time on the sun, a little olive oil on his skin. And you know what? I'm actually going to be down in Florida this whole weekend and next week. So hopefully when I come back, I'm going to be looking a little tan myself. Hey, what's going on, buddy? How we doing today?
Going on, everybody? Yeah, bro, it was nice to be in the sun now back in New York City. Obviously, it's actually been pretty nice out, but nothing beats being beachside. Also, that was 2 weeks ago. And I had a very, very, very nice week that week too. So being able to watch that unfold on Sunday in the sun was an absolute pleasure. So I hope you get to experience that with this upcoming football weekend, Johnny.
Yeah, I hope so too. And you know what it is? I'm actually happy about it. I'm not going to be doing probably much betting at all this week. So obviously Florida is tough to bet on. I think you could use the Hard Rock app, but I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to taking a break here this week. I get some futures in the mix right now. Maybe I'll throw a couple things in before I leave, a couple small things. And I know we were talking about it, but I don't think either of us really like the board overall. There's a couple games I find appealing that there is a possibility for us to have an edge on. But other than that, I think I'm just kind of taking it easy and riding some futures.
Yeah, no, I hated the board. I hate the current board. Last week, I was a big fan of the board. Still didn't ended up with like Commanders not covering that teaser was like probably like a 6-unit swing for me. If they would have covered that teaser leg, would have been a massive week. But a lot of things we talked about from last week, I was adamant on Dallas. That was pretty sweat-free. Broncos, Colts under, I loved. That was not sweat-free, but that was a cash. And I like that Seattle, Green Bay under. That was a cash as well. Tampa Bay, we both liked. That was also nice. But some other misses there with the Commanders being a big one. But this upcoming week, with the quarterback changes because injuries, the divisional games between teams that don't have anything to play for, and the somewhat inflated lines, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I don't love the board at all.
Yeah. Before we get to the lines, I know it's been a few weeks since we talked about any futures. And to be honest, it was kind of more of the same where we're talking about a revolving door. All right, this one's on top, then that one's on top. I know we mentioned the MVP market when we were talking about the Bills-Lions game. We were very clear how much that was going to impact the MVP market, sort of like the Ravens 49ers last year, and the winner of the Bills-Lions game. Ultimately, that quarterback was going to have the inside track for the MVP, in my opinion. Had the Bills won, which they did, Josh Allen not officially closed the door, but he's definitely the guy that it's his award to lose right now. And unfortunately, Jared Goff throws for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in a loss. I don't think Goff is officially done, but he's on life support. And it's unfortunate because Goff realistically may have 40 passing touchdowns and 4,500 yards, and he's not going to get the nod for it. So it is unfortunate. But listen, we're saying this for a while. If Josh Allen wins the MVP, I'm not going to be upset about it. This guy deserves it this year. I know the voters want to get him one because somehow he hasn't won an MVP to this point. So, I think right now what I was saying as well with Lamar at 14-1 was too long. I still think there's a shot for Lamar. The media loves him, and he's got the stats right now to back it up. So still a live award, but it is Allen's to lose for sure.
Yeah, I disagree. I think I'm more adamant that he's not going to lose it, honestly. But like, I don't think it's like gift wrap, bowed, and done. Though I think it would take massive changes for it to change and him not to win.
Another award that I wanted to talk about because it's seen a lot of drastic changes in the last 2 weeks is the Coach of the Year. Dan Campbell was minus 200 a couple weeks ago, and even after the win, not last week, but the week before, when they played the Packers, he's still kind of shortened up. But after the loss and the Vikings win, the market completely flipped. Campbell was 4-1 this afternoon. Now he's 5-1. Kevin O'Connell's taking some serious heat. And this NFC North race has now become very interesting. So much so that, the Lions almost need to win out with the way the Vikings are playing to win this award. That's not mathematically how it works, but say both teams win their next 2 games, then I think if the Vikings beat the Lions in the last week, they're going to get it. And I felt like whoever wins that division is probably going to win the award. Sean Payton's done a bang-up job. The way he's transformed Bo Nix from the beginning of the year to now probably has a team in the playoffs, considering where they were last year. He's absolutely deserving and in consideration. This is a tough year to break this award down because there's so many contenders. Dan Quinn, I felt like he kind of lost it. He had it for a while early in the year, but they hit that 3-game losing streak. That kind of knocked them out. Mike Tomlin was a favorite not that long ago, but a couple losses really hurt him. I don't think Tomlin's going to win. I really think it's a 2-horse race between O'Connell and Campbell, and I think it's going to come down to who wins the NFC North. But give me your case for each coach.
I have a Kevin O'Connell 20-1 Coach of the Year ticket. So give me all the Kevin O'Connell. If I want it head, maybe I could sprinkle a little Dan Campbell. I'm not going to give out exactly what the secret sauce is, but this is a huge shout out to Cleve TA on Twitter @Cleve TA, and he always does a preseason preview where he breaks down essentially some of these awards and also like the criteria for some of these awards, because you have to always remember with awards there are human beings voting on the awards, right? Like it's not simple like you hit XYZ metric, you get the award. Like you have people voting. And I don't have the exact, know exactly what he has and what he wrote in front of me, but there is a Coach of the Year among all the awards. There's a very strong criteria, and it's realistically comes down to the most overachieving coach rather than the coach on the best team. And the Vikings, as it currently stands, are by far the most overachieving team. They were expected to win, I think, 6.5 games or 7.5 games of their win total. They have 11 wins. They still can win the AFC North, the NFC North, excuse me. You have the Sam Darnold resurgence. You have all those factors where they massively have beaten their win total, exceeded their win total. They could beat the Lions for the best division in football, and they could be the number 2 seed, if not the number 1 seed in depending on how it fixes in Philly in the NFC with Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell. Team's supposed to win 7 games. So I don't think I think based on the past that in having this ticket alone, which is why I bet this ticket in the first place, obviously those things that happen, I'm riding my 20-1. And with Dan Campbell, I think the media loves him. He's a darling. And I think if the Lions do win some games and like do win the North, this line will shorten up. But I don't know if I'm going to hedge out or anything, Johnny, but let's go KOC.
I actually have a way where you can most likely win either way.
I'm all ears.
If the Vikings win the division, it's going to be Kevin O'Connell's award. I don't really see anybody else winning it if the Vikings win the division. And I'm upset at myself because I was looking at this line for the Vikings to win the division a few weeks ago, and they were 9-1. I'm like, that's big. The Vikings were hot on their heels, and I didn't take it. And obviously I'm kicking myself now. But you could still get Minnesota north of 2-1 to win the division. So if you took that and you took Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, chances are one of those two is going to hit, and you would lock in a profit. Say you did 1 unit on each, you're gonna come away with some sort of profit. I don't, like I said, I personally don't think Peyton, Quinn, Tomlin, any of those other guys are going to win. I think it's kind of white noise and fluff right now, and I think it's O'Connell versus Campbell. So why not take the Vikings to win the division and Campbell to win Coach of the Year? Because if somehow, if the Lions stay where they're at and they keep winning and they ultimately take the NFC North and likely the 1 seed, then I think Dan Campbell's going to win. But
yeah, no, I mean, I don't know, because yes, the Lions are still overachieving, but they also were a team with a 10.5 win total. So again, we can't act like this is like a team that's come out of nowhere a lot on Minnesota. I think I agree with you that it is a 2-man race. I think the Peyton hype has to stop. Dan Quinn, the ship has stopped, even though they should probably be closer, but they're gone. Tomlin's gone. It's worth thinking about. And obviously I have a little bit of time before these games kick off, but as I currently said, I think I'm just going to ride, but I do understand your rationale. But I don't know, outside of like the love that the media may just have for Campbell, if like if he fits the criteria as strong. And again, it's not a perfect criteria. It's not like 100% hit rate, but like it's like a 70+%. If there's a bunch of other things that I don't have in front of me that include. It's not just the over exceeding the win total, but I think I'm just gonna ride, Johnny.
Listen, I completely agree. I mean, personally, bro, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I think O'Connell is absolutely deserving, no question about it. But let's be real here. Compare Vikings to the Lions. Dan Campbell, yes, there was a lot of expectations, but there's a realistic chance that the Lions win 15 games, even compared to a 10.5 win total. That's a big difference. Not to mention, he's lost almost his entire starting defense. Now he's lost David Montgomery in a crucial stretch where seedings and divisions are going to be determined. So if he comes out on the other side with even the 2 seed, but he wins a division, I personally think he should get it, especially because he hasn't won one yet. The media loves him, but I certainly understand the Kevin O'Connell theory. And not for nothing, I think Brian Flores, the job he's done with Minnesota's defense this year is absolutely going to be, very high on the list for an assistant coach of the year. So, I mean, I can see it both ways. I think O'Connell's a little bit too long here at minus 190. So that's why I'm thinking if you want to take the shot right now before this week kicks off, Vikings to win the division, north of 2-1. Dan Campbell to win coach of the year, 5-1. Anybody thinking about doing it, that's the way to make money. I think one of those two is a very high chance of happening, considering that it's most likely a 2-man race in the coach of the year.
No, I like that. We'll see. Got a lot of football, tough matchup for Minnesota this week, and then the Bears at home. So of course we'll be talking about these games shortly.
Yeah, definitely. We could get more into that shortly as well. But one other thing now with the news, everybody knows Michael Penix is the starter in Atlanta. I got to be honest that this might get me back into really rooting for the Falcons. I'm not a huge college football guy. I've over the last couple of years, this year, last year, I would say I'm at most a casual fan. I throw some money in on futures. I throw some games in each week. But I really loved watching Michael Penix, like a lot of other people did. And all the talk that he was the most pro-ready of all the quarterbacks coming out. This really has me hyped. And I know Atlanta drew so much criticism by signing Cousins and drafting Penix in the top 10. But now Atlanta still has the 2-game tiebreaker over Tampa with the head-to-heads this year. The Bucs currently are ahead in the division. And I picked Tampa Bay to win the division preseason. That was one of my favorite bets. But what I want to ask you, do you think Atlanta at plus 320 with Penix and the variance that he's going to bring to the table is worth a shot at the Falcons at plus 320 to win this division?
Well, when you put it like that, yeah, it's certainly worth the variance to take. If you're inviting variance, you're going to take the plus money. So if you are of the belief that Michael Penix is going to be an improvement among Kirk Cousins, which the last couple of weeks, obviously, that's not a very high bar. But if you take the course of the season, you still have to be probably like the 21st, 20th best quarterback in football, which is a lot to ask for a young player. There's obviously a lot of uncertainty around the situation, like if it's a Raheem Morris call, if it's a Dimitroff call, there somebody upper that's like making the decision, or if it is really like, okay, we watch them practice every single week, we see that we have something here, and he gives us the best chance to win. Like if those things are all true and that's actually the case, then yeah, it's worth the variance on Atlanta. I don't know how good he is, so am I running to bet Atlanta? No, but like just generally betting speaking, and this definitely fits this case. Like if you're inviting variance into it, you want to look for bets with plus money. Serving the tiebreakers that you have, and obviously they're minus 14 or like 8.5 against the Giants this week, so there's no variance to buy in on there. Yeah, the way to try to buy in on the hype would be Atlanta to win the South. But you also have to consider, of course, your thoughts on Tampa Bay. But yes, if you want to try to capitalize, I would say Atlanta to win the South would be a way to get involved and, like you said, invite that variance.
Yeah, it's worth considering here because when you look at it, look at what the Falcons have the rest of the way. Home against the Giants this week, big favorite. Then they're at Washington. That's obviously a tough game, especially with Washington fighting for a playoff spot, which we both liked preseason. We liked the Commanders to be a playoff team. And last week is the Panthers. Panthers showing a lot of life lately. Obviously, they had a stinker against Dallas, but other than that, they've been a tough team. But that is a winnable game as well. So reasonably, Atlanta could go 3-0. It's definitely possible for them to go 3-0. Whereas Tampa, this week, they're in Dallas, and Cooper Rush has played some good football. He's been a captain of the ship for the Cowboys. They've pretty much been in every single game that he's quarterbacked since Dak Prescott went down. So even though Tampa is a favorite this weekend, Dallas upsetting the Bucs is not that far-fetched. Then Tampa, who struggled with Carolina a couple weeks ago, maybe just took them a little too lightly. They rematch in Tampa. And then final week of the season, it's the Saints in Tampa. So, I mean, there is a realistic possibility that Tampa can go 2-1 and Atlanta wins out. And if that's the case, Falcons have the tiebreaker. They would slide in to win the division and host a playoff game in Wild Card Weekend. So, personally, I would take the shot. I think Atlanta right now is absolutely is worth the shot. I would say I doubt, but I think it's very unlikely that two NFC South teams are going to make the playoffs. I just think with the NFC North and the NFC West and the Commanders, there's a lot of competition, and I don't know if the loser of the NFC South is going to be able to have enough juice to get in there as a wild card.
I read earlier this week that if Washington wins one game and Atlanta loses one game of these next three, Washington's in and Atlanta's not in. So it really is a win-out situation for Atlanta, and obviously they play each other. So, yeah, so say for whatever reason Atlanta loses to the Giants this week and Washington is able to beat Philly as a dog, then the Commanders are going to be playing, meaningful football in January. But if not, then they play that week 17, just flex to Sunday Night Football, which is music to my ears, of course.
Yeah.
We'll see, because I was licking my chops for a Kirk Cousins shot, but they made a change. So we'll learn a lot this week from this game against the Giants. I think we'll learn a lot, but we'll learn something.
Absolutely. And anybody looking for this, definitely worth a shot for Atlanta at plus 320. If you believe in the Michael Penix hype train, also a kid from Tampa, just saying, really do like I like that look a lot for even a sprinkle. All right, time to dissect the board. Favorite looks for Week 16. You've been doing this show for the whole season. You know how it goes. What are you looking at for this week?
All right, so last week, my favorite things came through with Houston being my favorite play. Then Dallas was one of them, and the under. Actually, those went 3-0, so that was nice. But again, don't love the board this week. Like a couple of games with still QB news we need to find out about, but this is going to be tough to say out loud. But I think, and I haven't done anything this week. Like I've obviously always been transparent when I've already wagered. I have not wagered. I like the Eagles, man. I like the Eagles laying 3.5 in Washington. I think it's a little short. I am kind of also fading my numbers here. I actually think my numbers make it 2.5, but I'm trying to put everything into perspective here. I think the Eagles are being overshadowed. I know that they're finally getting the love, but I think that they still are not getting the love they deserve for as good of the team as they currently are. I know they have their issues on offense here and there with the passing game, but when Saquon's cooking and A.J. Brown is dominating, obviously him, Devonta Smith, Saquon, they form one of the best trios of skill players in football. Then defensively, I think it's, again, their defense to this point, despite putting up great numbers in success rate, EPA, etc., I think it's still an underrated unit. Washington, Jaden Daniels is healthy. They should have won that Saints game by more than just one. Should have probably covered that spread and maybe covered some alt lines there too. But the offense is inconsistent. Their pass catching unit, I talked about it all year, is not good. Like Jaden Daniels made this team good because he's elite. And besides Terry McLaurin, the rest of the team is mid. Even Brian Robinson, he's good, but I promise you they'll be drafting running back this spring. It's not an amazing unit by any means. And I think that with Noah Brown being hurt, now Zach Ertz out, the Phillies run D, they're not going to be able to do what they want to do on offense. And all things considered, I think, I know you love laying the 3.5, Johnny. I don't think this is a situation where it might go to 3. I think it's going to go to 4. And I think the Eagles are a tier above Washington in terms of roster and obviously in terms of how they play together. I think this is a little short. I like Philly.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is probably one of my favorite looks of the week here because echoing everything you just said, Philadelphia is playing good football. I think Washington still has a lot of question marks. Jaden Daniels makes this team so much better. Outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't really have anything consistent in the pass game. And we saw Terry McLaurin just get shut down earlier in the season when they played the Eagles in Philly. And listen, that was a game Washington probably could and should have won. That was a game where Washington had Dan Quinn elects to not try the field goal, go for it on fourth down. They don't get it, changes everything. And then Saquon Barkley, to be honest, he was being, I wouldn't say shut down, but he was being, I guess, neutralized until that fourth quarter where he had 2 or 3 big runs that kind of juiced up his overall stat line. And they were doing a good job. And I don't think Philadelphia necessarily blows them out. I think it could be close. I think Washington can definitely have a puncher's chance. But I think Philadelphia here, they've won 10 in a row, and they've done it in different ways. Their defense has played very well. And I put out the tweet after they went into Baltimore and they beat them. Respect. Because in my opinion, before that, they didn't really have a convincing win. They didn't have a statement win. But going into Baltimore, who was on fire at the time, that's a statement win. And credit where it's due, Philadelphia has played very good football. And considering the fact that everything is wide open for them, where they can go get that 1 seed, they're smelling it. I think with the Philadelphia schedule remaining, where they're going to play the Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, I think realistically we're going to be able to see this team win out and have a chance for that top seed. So laying 3.5 here, I like it. I'm on board with you. I think this is a Philly spot.
Yeah, no. The thing is the Saquon being like, I know we had this conversation even back when we were discussing the aftermath of that game. It's been the MO. Like they run it, they don't stop running at you, and like the fact that he gets better over the course of the time is because he's a tough guy to tackle. Their offensive line is dominating and fierce, and I don't think that is necessarily even a concern. I think that is just how they operate their offense. They're just not going to stop giving it to him, and eventually, a team that lacks horses up front like Washington, they're gonna wear out.
Definitely part of their MO. They've done that a lot this year. All it takes is one for Saquon. All right, Thursday night football. The Denver Broncos at the LA Chargers, just under 3, low total of 42.5. This is one of those sloppy AFC West games. We've seen a lot of them over the years. I think LA, man, they were really good when they didn't play anybody. And I think especially since J.K. Dobbins has been out, we've seen the regression. They got blown out at home against Tampa last week. They lost to Kansas City. Yeah, you can make the case they should have won. The Chiefs got lucky, all that fine. But then at Atlanta the week before, they only score 17 points. They lose to Baltimore. They have not played good football in the last month. Whereas Denver right now, they're on the outside looking in. This is a team that has every bit of the makings of a playoff team. Nick Bonito, right now, defensive player of the year candidate, which kind of sucks because I was saying to myself, 40-1, I should take a shot on this guy. I don't. He has a pick 6, and before you know it, he's one of the favorites. Surtain, probably the best corner in football this year. If I was taking a side, I'd probably go with Denver in this one.
So I actually make this let's see, -225. So I'm right there with the threes. There were threes all day yesterday, so that's my bad for not taking the 3 with Denver. Not going to get the 2.5 now. But that being said, I clearly do see value with Denver at 3. But if it's not available, it's not available. It's nothing that I really am in love with either, though. Like the Broncos, both these teams when they play bad teams, they look good. When they play good teams, they look what they are: mediocre teams that are still on the come up, right? It's not like they're supposed to be 2 world beater teams. Denver's supposed to be worse, but they're supposed to be around these 8 to 9 win teams, right? So we talked about it as it happened, Johnny. We talked about how J.K. Dobbins getting hurt was going to matter, and it's done nothing but matter for LA. They don't have any weapons outside. Denver's defense is legit, but on the flip side, Bo Nix is not good, ladies and gentlemen. He's not. He's okay, and he's improving, but he's not at this current state. He's not good at football. He's not a really good quarterback. So it is a battle of really mid versus mid, and the Broncos need this to get some room on the Chargers, who won the first game. So if they win, they'll have the same record and the Chargers will have the 2 wins over Denver this year. So that'll mix things up for these 2 teams that are currently 6th and 7th in the AFC seeding, but nothing I'm running to the table to bet with that 3 being gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree on that. Okay, so this is interesting now. And I actually have something funny that I think you'll get a kick out of. So Kansas City was under a field goal, I think, yesterday. When I was building out these graphics or whatever, these banners, Kansas City was 3. And I just checked, and it just moved to 3.5. So we're seeing money coming in on Kansas City. I think it's hilarious how Mahomes gets rolled up last week, and then people are saying, here it comes, every season, the late season, hurt, hobbling off the field, and but we know he's gonna play next week at the heroics. Patrick Mahomes, how does he do it en route to another Super Bowl run? So is it that time where we're gonna get that Mahomes milking an injury, and he, against all odds, comes back out on the field, leads his team to a win, and all that stuff? So I thought that was pretty funny, and it's usually pretty true. But listen, Houston is not a good football team. I know this is one side that you liked that I didn't, where you thought Houston was that Super Bowl team. Stroud was that MVP pick. And I didn't buy it. I thought there was a little bit too much hype. And to be honest with you, Houston could have blown Miami out. Miami gave Houston a couple extra chances that they probably should not have had. Kansas City isn't that enticing right now, but they're finding ways to win. And I feel like I keep getting burned with taking the Chiefs on the money line or on the spread, but put a gun to my head. I like Kansas City here covering the 3.5.
No, I agree. It was 2.5 on Monday when it was uncertain if Mahomes was going to play or not. But I wish I got some plus 2.5 Kansas City, or at least one early teaser look, capitalizer or something like that. But yeah, like you said, like I was high on Houston coming in, but it was nothing I had like action on, so I kind of waited and see. I didn't really get burned by them. Fortunately, got blessed by them this past week as they covered. But I agree, like they're not good at football. Like the pipe dream that the Houston Texans are, this like still Super Bowl caliber team. Yeah, they're going to get into the dance. Just got to make the dance, get a chance. No, like they're not. They're getting exposed. Like they're not good. And yeah, Mahomes is hobbled, but he's dealt with injuries to his ankle that aren't that serious before. He practiced in full. Houston's pass rush does scare me a little bit with the Chiefs O-line being poor and maybe a hobbled Mahomes. So that's why I'm not really looking to bet anything on the spread here, though I do make it 5. But with the Mahomes injury, I see why it's 3.5. Of course, this is a Saturday game also, by the way, everybody. So set your calendars accordingly. But gun to head, I'm with you. I'm with the Chiefs. And I just want to talk more about, though, I cannot wait to fade the Houston Texans in the playoffs because they're bad.
They're going to win the division almost by default. So they're most likely going to get the Steelers or the Ravens. And
they clinched the division. So it depends where this Ravens, like you said, Ravens-Steelers breaks out for that division. But the Houston Texans are playing playoff football, and I'm betting against them.
Yeah. Speaking of the other Saturday game we have, I hate that the NFL did this. The Saturday games with college football playoffs, typically always a Saturday day. Just can't let them have it. I got to be honest, I'm probably going to be watching college football. I'll be watching the college football playoffs. I can't say the NFL trying to monopolize every day of the week. It's going to be college football Saturday for me. But Pittsburgh, a big dog at Baltimore. Steelers won the first matchup. That's kind of the thing that's really separating them right now. The Ravens are a big 6.5-point favorite, but obviously it's worth noting because TJ Watt's status is uncertain. George Pickens' status is uncertain. The offense was anemic last week for Pittsburgh without George Pickens. They just had no way of moving the ball downfield. I don't know where the Steelers would be able to get some of these explosive plays outside of a shot or two to Calvin Austin. George Pickens had a good game the first time around. So if Pickens doesn't play, it's a huge problem. TJ Watt doesn't play, it's an even bigger problem. I want to wait to see what the status of those two guys are before we bet them, because say one or both of them are in, this line might come down a little bit. I think Baltimore's going to win. I don't think Baltimore's going to get swept this season by the Steelers. And, for anybody wondering what it's worth, you still get the Ravens at plus 130 to win the division. So I think it's definitely an advantageous bet. But yeah, Ravens to win this game, but still need a little bit more injury confirmation before I take a side on the total or a side on the spread.
Tomlin said he's optimistic for Watt on Monday, so we're probably going to see TJ Watt. Pickens, I haven't heard anything, but I'm with you. I make it 6-2-5, so I definitely see value on Baltimore. I mean, on Pittsburgh, though very slight. If there was a 7, I would bet Pittsburgh, not think twice. It's just that AFC rivalry game this has is still like you can't like the Mike Tomlin voodoo just because it didn't show up last week. You can't forget that it exists, especially when he's an underdog, especially when he's an in-division underdog. I'm not laying points in a divisional game of this magnitude against Mike Tomlin based on their coaching, and especially with my numbers, even technically saying there is value on Pittsburgh. So I am probably staying away, though. If I'm taking a fun 10-point teaser or doing something, I would add Pittsburgh into that because there's no way I think they lose by 2 scores. That being said, though, there are concerns with this Pittsburgh offense. If Russell, and we've talked about this for weeks. Russell Wilson, when he first came in, he was hitting these deep balls. Yeah, they look great. When you don't hit the deep balls, it's going to look like crap. It finally regressed. It looked like crap in Philly. Baltimore's pesty, that was nowhere near as good as Philly's, so that being said. And again, the whole divisional thing, I don't believe in necessarily trends, etc. But when you have situations as stable as like a Harbaugh and Tomlin as it goes in the AFC North, like you're giving me 6.5 points with Mike Tomlin. That's in division. It's enticing. It's very enticing.
Yeah. All right, Cleveland Browns and Cincinnati Bengals, another big spread, 7.5. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Cincinnati Bengals are alive in the playoff race. Not very much, but they are nonetheless. They need about 1,000,001 things to go their way. All starts with winning out. Cleveland moved to DTR. Nick Chubb's out for the year. It's unfortunate. Nick Chubb is a warrior. It sucks to see. Bengals laying 7.5 is tough, I will admit. But if you if you forced me to pick a side here, not that I'm going to, I'm not going to lay 7.5 with the Bengals. I would, as opposed to getting 7.5 with DTR and the Browns. But I'll say this: I think this is a great Bengals teaser spot.
No, I feel you. I should make it 7-7-5. So if it gets back to 7, I like it. Teaser, I definitely like it. We know what to expect from DTR. Like the Browns clearly said, we don't want this turnover James experience anymore. So they're going to a guy that's going to run a little bit. He's going to, take the check down every single time. He's not going to, try to do what James was trying to do. And as we know with the Bengals, we saw last week, they force turnovers. Like any defense, they could change the field, and this offense can score on anybody. But that's asking for so much now, especially considering that it's DTR. You're going to see less explosive plays, but you're also going to see probably less turnovers. So it's something, again, like we said at the top of the show, we don't like to not be opinionated, but not going to also pound the table for some stuff that we don't love. And I hate this board, and I don't like this game.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Arizona Cardinals. I've said it every week, so I might as well say it again. The highest variance team in the NFL, blah, blah, blah. When they decide to show up and play, they're the best team in the league. When they don't, they're the worst. Didn't play particularly well against New England. It was a flat day from Kyler Murray. James Conner looked good. Now they're 4.5 at Carolina. To be honest, I want to wait to see how this line moves throughout the week before I would bet it, because there could be a chance that more people take action on Arizona. They might get Arizona up to 5 or even 5.5, and I'd probably take Carolina. Cross-country flight is a concern, but, the Cardinals, man, this is a butter matchup on paper, but even though the Panthers didn't play particularly well against Dallas, if you look at their overall body of work, we were talking about it earlier in the show, they've been one of, if not the best team against the spread in like the last 6 weeks, with the exception of the Dallas game. So getting points at home where Bryce Young's played a lot better, it's crazy to think that in 2024, in late December, we're talking about taking Carolina here, but I want to see where this line goes before I make a definitive statement on it.
I like Carolina. Probably my second best look currently, but again, nothing deployed at the moment, so I am clearly still hesitant. But we talked about it last week. the Panthers covering spreads as underdog is so much different than winning a game by points, right? They were covering as dogs. They're a favorite. They don't even win that game, let alone obviously cover. The Cardinals have faced the most difficult schedule in NFL by any stretch of the imagination. Any time that they've played a team that is mediocre or about average or worse than average, a la the Bears, Jets, Patriots. Patriots, of course, being one of the worst teams in football. They've scoreboard looks great. They've blown them the hell out, right? They blew out the Bears, they blew out the Jets, and Patriots score-wise was a blowout, though. No, they beat the crap out of the Patriots, and that's why I actually ended up betting the Cardinals late that week in a teaser because like I was, looking at their schedule. I'm like, when they play good teams, they compete, and they play bad teams to blow them out. That being said, I don't think that's the spot for it this week. This Cardinals defense is still obviously very overrated. This Panthers defense is not good. Like their defense is good. I don't think the Cardinals have such a big coaching edge like they did last week against Gerard Mayo in this matchup, and I think that the success we've seen, Bryce Young, the incremental success, will continue now in a soft matchup. And we know Kyler Murray is consistently inconsistent as it gets. And I expect a dud game from Arizona, honestly. And I kind of like the under too, because I think that would suppress the scoring environment. I could also see the case for the over. They have two teams, two bad defenses, two teams that can move it a little bit now. But I'm kind of doing this game in the opposite direction. I like the Panthers to win, not win, but cover an uglier game. So I kind of like the under, and I like the Panthers.
I need Kyler to have a big one. I'm in my fantasy semifinals, and I have Kyler starting, so I need him to roll. Dud last week, and I still survived. But would you agree or disagree with my thought that maybe you wait to see if you can get a better number on Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're able to sit by a screen and you start seeing that movement happen, so you can get in or if it's going the other way, then absolutely. I make the game 3-5, so I see some pretty good value on Carolina. I don't know which way it's going to go, but at the same time, you gotta send it if you want to try to get some line value. But like we've talked about at times too, like sometimes it really doesn't even matter. Of course, you want to get the best number if possible, always. But I don't even think I need to wait. I'm just more waiting because I hate that I'm betting on crappy teams, but you gotta do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Like it's like a 6-point teaser, Carolina plus 10.5. Like I do not think they get blown out. Like I could see why you could come to the conclusion they can get blown out because their defense is terrible and their offense, we're still giving them too much credit, but I can't get there. The dominations by Arizona against bad teams are also all at home. I don't think Arizona. If I ride my numbers, I'm riding Carolina.
I mean, listen, I agree with you. I think this is definitely a spot where Carolina can keep this one close. It's time. Atlanta Falcons, baby. Michael Penix time. Hallelujah. Very excited to see. I know we talked about this at the top of the hour, but if we're being honest, 7.5 points is a lot. We've seen a lot of teams, or not a lot of teams. We've seen a lot of movement. Atlanta was 8.5 today. Come down to 7.5. But I got news for you, Eric. I'm riding the Atlanta Falcons, man. You only get one chance to bet on Michael Penix first start. It's like, for me, it was like the first time I was ever able to bet on Paul Skeens over strikeouts. You only get one chance to bet on his first outing. How could you not take the over on Paul Skeens' strikeout? How can you not take the chance to back Michael Penix on the spread in his first NFL start? Give me the Dirty Birds minus 7.5 in the ATL. No doubt.
Yeah, I would. You couldn't pay me to bet on this game. Honestly, I would never lay 7.5 points with a rookie quarterback in any situation, and the Giants are by far my worst team in my power ratings. So I think I don't know how to quantify the change. I'm not going to pretend to know how to quantify the change. I just know from a betting perspective, we were talking about at the top of the show how if you want to invite the variance of Penix, you bet the Falcons to win the division at plus 330. To lay 7.5 points with a rookie quarterback, no, thank you for my money.
You know what? You took home a little tan, and now you just think you're hot shit. Talking about my Michael Penix, like he's not going to light this up on Sunday.
I hope he does. Jaden Dale's the best rookie quarterback we've seen in forever. He didn't cover shit his first game. So
you know what, man? The tan that you got going to your head here, buddy. It's going to your head. We're gonna have a nice Darnell Mooney. It's a Darnell Mooney day. Fantasy Darnell Mooney for me. I'm going to bet some Darnell Mooney props. Everybody's elevated. It's happening. It's happening.
It's possible. All right. So what about this, Johnny? Passing prop 226.5. Obviously, they have Bijan that can literally just hand in the ball 30 times, and the Giants don't have a chance. But that being said, are you now you're willing to lay the 7.5? Are you betting any alt passing props or even maybe a little anytime tutty?
I got to do a little bit more. I'm not gonna jump off the handle. First of all, I don't have any props on FanDuel, so I gotta shop around and see what the best numbers are
right now. I'm seeing, but his opening prop number on Caesars, again, other shops will open other places, 226.5.
I gotta take a look and I gotta dive to the numbers because also here's the problem. It's not that he can't do it, but it's what kind of package are they going to put in? Are they going to do the very simple basic, which is probably the most likely. It's going to be a lot of get the ball out of his hands quick passes. And I was reading something else today on Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, where the limitations they have with Kirk Cousins with the lack of mobility and arm strength. Now those concerns are alleviated because you have a QB like Michael Penix that can get out on the move and he can throw the deep ball. So maybe they don't. So that's kind of a guessing game because you really don't know what kind of package that they're going to deploy with him. But I got to get, in the film room, I got to get looking at the numbers and see what the possibility is for Penix here. Because listen, if the Falcons built a lead and they run the ball, Bijan 20, Tyler Algier 18, and it goes run heavy, trying to burn clock, then obviously it's going to be hard for him to get there. So I got to do a little bit more soul searching and a little bit more research before, I make a proclamation that I'm going to say he throws for 250. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm,
I think overall, those talent-wise, for him and his supporting cast, it's possible. Like, I wouldn't be – if Penix came out on Sunday, threw for 3 bills, 3 tutties, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, just for fun, I might do a little Penix 250, 2 passing touchdowns, just for the fun of it, something to root for the young buck. But, I got to do a little bit more of a deep dive before I confidently say I'm going to go over on pass yards.
Understood.
All right, AFC South matchup, Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, 3.5. Gross. I got nothing.
I'm with you. Gross, got nothing. I can see the Titans playing spoiler. The Colts, I think, are in a downturn, though they are still a good team. Means just they're a little bit below average. They're not. The Colts are not a good team. But that being said, the Titans are god awful. I'm not betting on Mason Rudolph. I'm not betting on Will Levis. If you want to have some fun in this game, I feel like you just have to take the Titans, a la that Titans-Jaguars game where it's why are either of these teams actually laying 3.5 points? You might as well bet on the money line in a game like this where they're basically dead in the water teams. I think it'd be fun to see the Titans play spoiler because their defense is still solid, and the Colts still much better at home. I think the line is probably fair, but like you said, Johnny, I want nothing to do with this one.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Really no playoff implications. That's not true. I mean, Indianapolis can get in, but it's very difficult for them to win out. I mean, if you force me to pick a winner straight up, I think the Colts are probably going to win. Also debating if I'm starting Nick Westbrook-Ikine this week. I got to see if there's some other options that I might go to on my bench. Kind of a dud last week. All right, Detroit Lions, 6.5-point favorites at those Chicago Bears, coming off a short week. Lions, man, it's tough to see. Team was playing well all year. They've been the best team in the NFL all season, but now they're really getting hit hard with the injury bug the last couple games. They lost a few defensive players. They lost David Montgomery, fired Jahmyr Gibbs up in your fantasy leagues. Might be the RB1 overall the rest of the way. I got him in that same league. So in any case, Chicago is, it sucks because they have a lot of talent. But even at home, the short week, we've been talking about the trend where the team loses on Monday night or even plays Monday night. It's hard for them to turn around the following week. Detroit bounce back spot. Considering who they have left, this is a game that they can't fool around with. They got to go after it, get up big, stay up big. They were blowing them out on Thanksgiving at home, and they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen here. I like Detroit with the points.
I like Chicago. I'm not going to bet them, but numbers wise, I think you have to downgrade Detroit, and like not like significantly, but you have to downgrade them. Like we talked about it last week. Like it doesn't matter who you are as a coach and your philosophy. Like when you're playing third, fourth, fifth string players, like you can't do it. Like there aren't that many talented players in the entire National Football League. Like the Lions defense, has when they're all fully healthy, like they were one of the better defenses, surprisingly. But we talked about this also last week, like with the Josh Allen, who put up those 2 tutties. I was hyping a big rush game for him. It came to fruition. Like we know what to expect from Aaron Glenn. It doesn't matter who he has on his team. He's still going to play this man-to-man style defense. Like this defense in the past, especially even last year when they even made the NFC Championship game, like was well below average. Yeah, they improved by talent, but their players that are big pieces on all 3 levels of their defense are not there anymore. Like they're going to be playing bad football players. Yes, the Bears are a bad team, but they played so much better at home this season. We saw their offense only pick it up when they had injuries to the Lions defense on that Thanksgiving game, and now they're even more injured than they were at that point in time. I don't think the Lions are going to be like on a down morale or anything after their loss. I do think it is a kick in the ass they need, but just from a pure number perspective, I think this is too long still for Detroit. And I think that this defense, it's a really terrible time, obviously, never a good time for injury, but down the stretch, like they're not, I think because of the injuries, because not because they're like, oh, maybe they'll play. We're talking about a bunch of guys who are out, like for the run. I think it's very fair to say at this point now the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. And heading into the playoffs, the Eagles have the chance of the Lions, like we talked about earlier, like actually don't win the NFC North and are 5 seed is very, very real.
It's possible. That's why I think with this game being so important, they're gonna come out and lay it down. I don't really have that much concern about the Jared Goff cold weather theory. I mean, to be honest, it's just not something that I'm really overly concerned with. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he has a bad game in the cold weather, but I think they're going to find a way to get this done. I see your point because Chicago is talented, and when they execute and their line's better, and Caleb Williams doesn't hold on to the ball for a day and a half, it's a team that is definitely competent. All right, Rams. 3-point fave at the New York Jets. Those LA Rams, man, anybody holding on to that futures for them to win the NFC West that they bet into preseason or they bet into a few weeks ago, looking very good. A lot of time left, but the LA Rams right now are definitely looking like the best team in the NFC West. Jets, I mean, they struggled with Jacksonville last weekend. Rams got the extra rest. Cooper Kupp put up a goose. This is like the second time in his career. I don't think that's going to happen again. I like the Rams in this one, even in a tough travel across the country spot. I think this is an LA Rams cover the 3.
So for me, from a numbers perspective, this is way inflated, and the Jets at 3. There was 3.5 earlier. Is like a definite bet. But the one thing you can't quantify is like the fact that they definitely are quitting now as a team. Like the questions the last couple of weeks have been if they're going to, like, after they got fully eliminated, is whether they're just going to give up. Like teams eventually, they're not going to put out their best effort. Then you have the week 18, you have the guys who are going to put on the players are always going to try their best to try to put on some good film. But like if the morale is absolutely ruined, then, at that point, it's over in a lot of cases. That's possible now that the Jets are at that point. But at the same time, considering they didn't give up last week against Jacksonville, they didn't give up against Miami. This Jets team, and nobody loved to talk more shit about the Jets than I did this summer. Like that's a fact on the record of being not liking their outlook and not thinking thought maybe they could sneak into the playoffs, but we're absolutely not winning the AFC East. But if you being objective, numbers wise, this team is much better than their record. Does that not mean that does not mean they're a good team? Does that mean they're a great team? It means that if you switch some of these little turnovers, some of these late game kicking nonsenses and stuff, they're probably closer to a 500 team than a team that's looking at a top 5 pick. The Rams, on the other hand, they put together a huge win against Buffalo. They got that win. I want to call it lucky, but like everyone watched that game. There were a bunch of times where balls were hitting off of defenders' hands that should have been interceptions.
Yep.
I'm not betting on the Jets because this is a situation again where I don't know how much they're going to really care about things. But with that being said, I think the 3 is a little much, and I would actually bet the Jets. And this goes back to why I think this is an ugly week. Maybe just a bias sticking in. Like when I feel something and I see it with my numbers, I'm like, yeah, I love it. But I see it with my numbers, and I'm just like, what? That's probably when I should still bet them. But I'm like, I'm not taking the Jets. I'm not losing my money betting the Jets for the 15th time this year.
Listen, it's an appealing argument. I totally understand it. Talent-wise, they still have a lot. And you saw what Devontae Adams did. Fantastic. That was a renaissance type of game for him. But, the problem is more for me is the defense. The defense is just I don't know if quit is the right word, but they just are not anything close to what we expected, obviously. But it's not even – it's more so the effort. You let Mac Jones put up 25 points. You let the Dolphins put up 32. You let the Seahawks put up 26. I know there was a defensive/special teams return touchdown. Colts put up 28. The Cardinals put up 31. I mean, if you look at what opposing offenses have done to the Jets the last 5 weeks, it's disgraceful. And the Rams offense didn't play well. And yes, Matthew Stafford could have easily thrown 2 pick sixes, or at least 2 picks. But Puka Nacua is a dog. He's turning into the next generation Cooper Kupp. Saw Stafford do it with Calvin Johnson. You saw Stafford do it with Kupp. Now he's doing it with Puka, turning him into an alpha wide receiver 1, a true X. And I think Cooper Kupp's going to play a lot better. I think Matthew Stafford is still prone to making mistakes, but there's enough talent on this offense to move the ball on the Jets defense. I don't think the Rams defense is anything special, so the Jets putting up some points is nothing of a surprise. It's just considering the key number here, I still like taking the Rams with 3, knowing your theory, but the truth is, man, it is hard to bet on the Jets right now. It really is.
Yeah, it's not fun. I think I haven't deployed anything yet, but a couple of games now. I feel like we've been on we've always been talking about times we're on like Oppo for certain plays, and like I'm not dying on a New York Jets hill by any means. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I think that, like you said, the Jets be able to have success on this Rams offense, I think is going to be an underrated factor with this. And 3 points, that key number. Jets clearly don't. I don't think they've quit, despite the fact they could have, maybe should have, but hasn't happened yet. They're at home. I think this number is a pick too far.
Fair point. Minnesota Vikings. Talked a lot about them at the top of the show. They're laying 3 at Seattle. I think the obvious question is what's going on with Geno Smith. I think he practiced this week. It's probably trending in the right direction. The line says so as well. I think if Geno Smith was in real danger to this point in the week of missing, I think the spread would be a lot bigger than 3. So assuming Geno Smith plays, what kind of shot do you give the Seahawks to not only cover this 3 at home, but win outright?
They have a chance to win outright. I make this number closer to, where is it? Closer to 2.5, and it's 3. It was 3.5. Now it's 3. So I do think that there is some value on Seattle, but this is a team that I've been pretty wrong on this year. I mean, I cashed their season win over. I need 1 more win in the next 3, or even 2 more. They just can't win out because I have exact wins 9, exact wins 10. So it ults over 9.5 wins. So ideally, I get 2 of these 3 down the stretch. But it's obviously tough because the Vikings are obviously such a great team. But it's not going to be, I don't think, the thing is supposed to be a rainy day as well in Seattle here. It's not going to be like the stereotypical, Sam Darnold in the cushy dome getting after it a little bit. Asking him to win on the road. It's not like Seattle where they play now. It's been as hard as like a home field advantage as it used to be. But I don't know that the Vikings have all these advantages per se over Seattle. And maybe I'm underestimating some things. Maybe I'm overestimating some things. The number being 4, like you said earlier, getting down at 2.5, now 3. It looks like we will see Geno. That's obviously a plus. As Sam Howell is obviously not ready to really play football at all. It's not good. But I don't know, Johnny. I think I wouldn't. If you told me that the Seahawks upset the Vikings, I'm not shocked. And that's not something I'm betting. But I find it hard to delay it with the Vikings here, even though they've been this wagon, a team that I've obviously have equity in with the Coach of the Year market.
I think they've had a lot of luck as well, especially during this stretch. Of course, they kicked the shit out of the Bears and the Falcons. No debate there. But against the Cardinals, that's a game that they should lose. I think the Cardinals lost it more than the Vikings won it. The Cardinals were up 2 possessions. They got scared on a 4th down. So, I think that's a game the Cardinals should win. The Bears, they were beating them, and they allowed them to come back and force overtime on the road, outside, on the road at the Titans. They didn't play that well. Yeah, on paper, it was a 10-point win, but the Titans had a Calvin Ridley 60-plus yard touchdown call back. The Jaguars in Jacksonville, Darnold was atrocious. Mac Jones, kept this game close, even though they only scored 7 points. Like the Vikings were only able to score 12 points in Jacksonville. It's alarming. And they lost at the Rams. At the Packers was close, but if I'm not mistaken, Love might have been out that game. Sure, they beat the Giants in week 1. They haven't played as well on the road, and now, especially if it's a raining condition, something that they're not used to. If Geno Smith is good to go, and obviously I want to see what Kenny Walker's status is, because Zach Charbonnet is good for a game or 2, but Kenny Walker's a different player, man. Kenny Walker's a beast. So I want to see what's going on with the Seattle injury news first, but early lean, assuming both of those guys are good to go, especially Geno, I'd probably lean Seattle here. The Seahawks have not really played great football lately. Of course it was early, but even before Geno left the Green Bay game, it didn't really look that good, in my opinion. Arizona is a team that is, like we said, it's high variance. The Jets aren't really that special. The Niners aren't that special this year. The meaningful games against teams like the Rams, the Bills, they lose those games. They lost to the Lions. So facing a Minnesota team that is probably at the moment one of the 6 best teams in the NFL, this is a big moment for them. So if Geno's good to go, I think I'm going to take the 3 with Seattle. I think that they can win this game as well.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Especially if it's rainy and bad conditions. Buffalo Bills, 14.5-point favorites at home against New England. I'm going to lay it with Buffalo. I think New England has a shot to maybe do some trick plays. Drake May uses legs to pack a punch here, but I think the way Buffalo's rolling right now, I don't think they're going to have one of those games where they kind of stumble and don't take this as seriously. They're not that kind of team, the Bills.
They're not that kind of team, but I do think the back door is open here for such a big spread. We know Drake May is good. He can move the football despite their lack of weapons, despite the lack of line he has around him. So that's my only issue backing of 14.5. We know when Buffalo, especially at home, we talked about this ad nauseum this year, Johnny, when they play a bad team with a bad quarterback, they suffocate them, but it's a bad team with a good quarterback. I don't think, like you said, they're going to play down to the competition, but I just think the back door is wide open for Drake May. So a guy especially who also runs too for first downs and touchdowns, I could see this game, like you said, being a 21-point game, Patriots ball with 3:20 left, and Drake May sneaking one in. So I don't want to get beat that way. And I don't want to lay with Buffalo, though. Like you said, I do think that they're, of course, suited to cover this type of number, but I think it's a backdoor spot potentially.
I mean, this could be one of those Josh Allen, 325 pass yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 40 yards on the ground, another touchdown or 2, and kind of not put the bow, but really start to put that stamp on that MVP candidacy. Miami's a small favorite this week at home against San Francisco. The Niners are virtually done. It is just not their year with the injuries that they've had. Miami, I think the regression Mike McDaniel has shown is alarming. Preseason, this looked like it was going to be a really good matchup. Late season, potentially divisional implications on the line. But to be honest, either of these teams making the playoffs is an uphill battle. Obviously, Miami has the better chance. At home, I'd probably say I would go with Miami if I was taking a side, but I don't know if I'm running to the window to back this game. What about you?
I like the Niners, but I'm more interested in the over. 44.5 seems way too low for a Dolphins team that, with Tua at the helm at home, is a team that's good for 27 to 31 points. That being said, a big part of my fade of Miami last week, and we've talked about this, Johnny, like the difference between situations and trends, big time. The fact of the matter is, under Tua and Mike McDaniel, the situations are that when Miami plays actually good teams, teams over 500 record-wise, they lose. They don't cover, they lose the game outright. Yes, the Niners are under 500, but on a lot of different levels, the Niners are just as good as a team like the Texans, if not actually even better than a team like the Texans that are a winning record team. It's different when it's in Miami, of course, and a tough travel from LA or from the Bay Area to then go to Miami. It's one of the longer flights there, but I don't think the Niners have given up whatsoever. I know Miami has more to play for, and I think instead of betting it the Niners money line, which I do definitely lean, I think this total is a tick low. Miami's defense has had times where it's played well, also times where they've got shredded. The Niners can still move the football, and if the Niners defense isn't playing, we know that Tua, again, is good for 30 if it's a situation where they don't falter to a better team. And if they're good for 30, I think San Francisco is definitely good for 17, no matter what happens. So, and that being on the lower end and obviously the higher end either way. So more outcomes I do see over this number of 44.5. So this is on my list for potential best bets as the over in this one.
I like your explanation of that. If you look at the Cardinals, what they've done at home since Tua returned against that Arizona game at home, they scored 27, 34, 34, 32. So right on par with that, scoring 27 plus. So I could absolutely see the over there. You might have swung me here with a little over in this Miami-San Francisco game. Jacksonville, Vegas. I don't care about this game. I got nothing here. Maybe some Brian.
Value on Jacksonville, bro. I see value on Jacksonville. Desmond Ritter's awful. That will probably see AOC. Yes, we need confirmation of who he's playing. With AOC, I think it probably gets to closer to 2.5. But if it's Desmond Ridder, he's really bad. I know the Jaguars' pass defense is horrendous, but this Raiders team is my second worst team currently power rated. They can't run the ball, and I lose Sincere McCormick. The Jags' run defense is good. They'll be able to get a little bit of pressure, make life hard for Ridder. And I think that their pass catching game's obviously taken a step back with some of the injuries, of course, to Trevor Lawrence, but to Ingram again and some other receivers. But I don't think Jacksonville is they're bad and they're bottom of the barrel. Don't get me wrong, but they have the coaching edge, believe it or not. And I don't think they're as bad. I actually made some money early in the year, as you remember, Johnny. They weren't winning, but they were covering some spreads early when I still said, they're not as bad as a record. I think in a game of dog shit, I prefer probably the home team generally, but I don't think the Jags are the dog shit level as the Raiders. I think they're a step above that terrible tier, and I think that them being dogs is a little egregious.
You want to bet this game? Have fun. I will not be betting it. I may take a shot on some Ryan Thomas Jr. props, maybe a possible Brock Bowers, but outside of that, don't ask me for much. All right, we got two more games to get to. I know it's been a long show, but let's wrap it up strong here. Tampa Bay Bucks 3.5 points at the Dallas Cowboys. This is a tough because on paper it looks like Tampa Bay could blow them away, but we mentioned it. Cooper Rush has been doing a good job in this Cowboy situation. I don't think he'd be quantified as a good quarterback, but he's a guy that is a good bridge quarterback. He's a guy that can keep the offense moving, keep the chains alive. Rico Dowdle's taken on a huge role these last 4 games, and he's done extremely well. CeeDee Lamb is still always CeeDee Lamb. The defense has Micah Parsons. They lost Trayvon Diggs. But to be honest, dude, I got to stick with Tampa. Tampa's been my team in the NFC South this year, and I like the Bucs here, covering 3.5 on the road. I think Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans can light them up. Mike Evans, 251 away from keeping that 1,000-yard streak alive. I think he can really put a dent into it in this one.
I think it could be a Tampa alt line spot, honestly. I think if you like Tampa, I think you can maybe get involved in some 6.5, some 10.5s potentially. I don't feel it strongly. Again, I have Tampa as an above-average team, make no mistake about it. And, this offense is undeniable at this point. I feel like it's been a situation where all season long, not saying in the sense of being a hater, but considering how good they were doing, I would be like, okay, they're probably going to regress. But what do? They get injuries to some key guys. Obviously, Godwin, Evans missed some time. Rashad White. And then what happened? Jalen McMillan's a beast. Bucky Irving's a stud. Kate Otton's catching tutties. And now Evans is back. Like, they're cooking. They're cooking with gas. They're fun as hell. And all credit in the world to them. I think there is definitely a world where this number is a little inflated because Dallas, like we've talked about, is nowhere near as bad as some of these other bottom of the barrel teams. Like, they compete, they fight, they play tough. But I think it's tough to say because I haven't bet it. But I think if you like Tampa, have some fun with some alts. But if you like Dallas, you're taking the 3.5. Like, I also would respect that. I also think that's probably right.
Yeah. Anybody up for a disgusting? Let's take Tampa on a 6-point teaser and get them plus 2.5. I used to do some stuff like that once upon a time. It's obviously usually a no, teasing across zero. But I like Tampa. What?
You live and you learn.
No, I've won a couple of them. I know you're not supposed to do it, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't care. I'm doing it.
Like they're winning. I don't give a shit. I'm taking.
Yeah, they're gonna win. I'm doing it. They're gonna win. I like Tampa in this spot, man. I'm looking for some Mike Evans props as well. Maybe one of those like 80 yards in a tutty, something along those lines. So give me the Buccaneers, baby. Back into my second home in Tampa, Florida. Monday night game. New Orleans at Green Bay, the unforgiving, the cold, the aggressive Green Bay, Wisconsin. Packers, minus 415. Same spread the Bills are laying with the New England Patriots. Low total of 42.5. Bad news for New Orleans. The Alvin Kamara situation is very questionable. Not good for me and my fantasy team. It's bad for New Orleans, man. I don't really know if Kamara misses. I mean, you're going to go to Kendra Miller, who is a playmaker. He can ball. I don't know though, dude. 14.5 is a lot, especially Spencer Rattler, who I think is starting. He's got some variance to where he can make some throws downfield. I have to check the weather in this one. If it's like a 20-degree day at night. Dome team that doesn't usually play in these conditions could be tough for them. Josh Jacobs has been ripping. Jordan Love is really starting to come on at this point in the season. I might lay it with Green Bay. I can't officially say. I'd need a little bit more time on that, but first initial look for me would be laying it with the Packers, even at a big spread.
If Jake Hayner's playing, give me all the Green Bay in the world. I watched that game, obviously, intensely as a Commanders fan last week. Guy's terrible. Did have a couple of unfortunate drops that maybe would have made his day respectable. But, no, he's absolutely not the answer. No pocket awareness, taking like 13-step drops back there. Then, wondering why he got sacked through a pick or through like a lucky-ass throw down the field. Rather, like you said, provides some upside, has played some games. But like you said, with this dome team going outdoors, I think it's more that the Packers. This is more of a statement for the Packers, right? Like you have Buffalo, New England. I feel like the 14.5 makes more sense. Like we know how good the Bills are and the Patriots are so bad. The Saints, numbers wise, like they're obviously hard to like really project because they have so many mishmashes of amazing play, mishmashes of Rattler, Jake Herner, mishmashes of a good defense in the beginning of the season. Then sometimes where you have no Shaheed, no Olave, like no Kamara. So like the numbers. Despite all this, though, their full season numbers, both on offense and defense, are not even close to terrible. But I think it's really showing how good this Green Bay Packers team is. Like I've been slow to buy them as a real Super Bowl contender, obviously as a legitimate team, but I think they actually are as legit as they come. And I think it's a respect thing that they're laying this, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them cover it by any means necessary. So Strather does provide some backdoor opportunity there, but the Packers. From a ratings perspective, I can't rate it, but I don't know who's playing quarterback. But I think it's just again a sign that Green Bay is here and they're real.
I have a question for you. This is something for me personally. I'd like your opinion on, and I'd like everybody just to, if you're thinking of a similar situation, hear this out. Say Tampa and LA both win their divisions, and say they're the both are 3-4 seed, interchangeable, whatever. Right now, both of those teams, Tampa and LA, are 14-1 to win the NFC. Now, you might be saying, well, you're crazy. What do you mean? They're not going to beat the Vikings. They're not going to beat the Lions. They're not going to beat the Eagles. Whatever. Might not even beat the Packers. But I'm thinking from this perspective, right? Say it finishes as is. Detroit 1, Philly 2, Tampa 3, LA 4, Mini 5, Green Bay 6, Washington 7, right? Let's say as of today, that is the playoffs, and that's what happens. Tampa plays Green Bay at home, where the Rams host the Vikings, where they beat them earlier this year. My thing is this: if you took both of those teams to win 14-1, there's a path where those two teams wouldn't have to play each other till the NFC. Like, what's your thought on taking a shot on those two teams to win the NFC with the offensive prowess and pedigree that they have? And yes, their defenses aren't to the level that they were a few years ago, but there's still an opportunity for them to make some plays and be serviceable and good enough to complement a high-powered offense.
So I was talking to one of my buddies. I didn't end up betting it, so I'm not going to brag about it. But it was probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. He was like, "Who do you like to win the NFC and the NFC West?" This was when the Rams were, a little bit looking like they were dead in the water. I was like, I think the Rams. I think it was 35-1 to win the NFC. I was like, I think that there's probably value there. Wish I got in. So I've been low-key a believer of the Rams over the last couple of weeks or so. So my opinion on them still potentially, being a team that could be put in a situation like you're outlining, I do agree with. So I think that it's kind of smart. I don't think anybody wants to play the Buccaneers right now. I don't think anybody wants to play the Packers right now. I think you're okay with playing any combination of the Rams, Vikings, Commanders, or Seattle if Seattle's the team who gets in. And obviously, I think teams want to play Detroit. Like I said, if Detroit goes to that 5 seed and they don't win the NFC North, Detroit is – I don't want to overreact to the injuries because they're still an amazing team that's a Super Bowl contender. But playing Detroit is less scary when you can potentially host Detroit rather than go to Detroit. So at 14-1 each, I like your strategy. I like where your head is at because you're getting a good payout. If they don't play until that final game, you have a guaranteed winner there. That's obviously awesome. And I think that there is a path for that, but we're going to have to see how it's something you're going to have to just take a stand on. It's not something I've evaluated a ton on, so I can't say I have a great opinion. But from a field perspective, I do agree that the current field, the way it is 1 through 7, outside of the 1 and 5 potentially flipping, I think the rest of it, well, I guess it would be 2 and 5, depending what Philly does. That's still to be determined. But I think the current 1 through 7 that is right now, I would not be shocked if that is the 1 through 7 when the games conclude in a couple of weeks from now and the playoffs officially begin.
Yeah, definitely something that I had to think about because, I mean, listen, man, especially when you think about the Rams, Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, they've been there. They've been to a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl. They know what it takes in the postseason. And, obviously Tampa Bay is a little bit more green with Baker Mayfield being in a playoff game of this magnitude. But, a lot of the guys that won the Super Bowl are still on the roster. So they're not shy about this particular situation. So that's just something I was thinking about. And I think Green Bay is solid, dude. I do. And I think Jordan Love, his progression is good. But to me, why I don't like Green Bay to make the run? And I'm not saying that they can't, but the reason why I'm shy on them is because their defense isn't as good to the level where we were expecting. Yes, they've dealt with some injuries, but the offense outside of Josh Jacobs, they don't have anything consistent. Yeah, Watson can break a big play or two. Jaden Reed has disappeared the last 5 weeks. It's nothing where I'm like, all right, well, they have a go-to receiver who's good for 80 yards a week. You look at every other team in the NFC, they have at least one of those guys that's good for like an explosive game, that's good for the opposing defensive coordinator having to game plan to take that player out, like Minnesota, it's Jettas, or Tampa, it's Mike Evans, or Detroit, it's Amon-Ra. It's all of that for every other NFC team but Green Bay. They don't have that guy. Even Washington's got Scary Terry.
Yeah, but I don't think that would be a reason why I would personally not be interested. I'd rather have Green Bay's overall receiver room than Washington's. I'd rather have a legitimate 5 weaponry, with none being a stud, than have a Terry McLaurin with your number 2 being De'Ami Brown. I'd rather have a Khalil Shakir, Amari Cooper, Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid and whoever else whatever what's his name, Matt Collins, then even with Detroit, like you have Amon-Ra, who's in my opinion, he's not a wide receiver one. He's very, very, very good, but he's like, legitimate wide receiver. I'm not talking about fantasy like top 12.
No, I'm talking about legit wide receiver one. He's an alpha. Amon-Ra, the sun god. I would kill for Amon-Ra. I would die for Amon-Ra.
He's not a wide receiver one in the national football.
He's
close. He's the tier below. He's the tier below.
He's a wide receiver one.
Like 5 of them in the NFL, so that's not a diss by any means. It's
Jettas,
Jamar, CD, AJ, Tyreek, and that's it. Those are the wide receiver ones.
Amon-Ra.
But I don't know. I don't think that's a reason to dislike Green Bay. I understand having a Jettas and utilizing that. Then when you have an Addison and a Hawkinson, life is better than having just 5 guys. I agree with that. But I think having a spread offense, again, if you have a Josh Allen, makes it easier. Patrick Mahomes makes it easier. But having the weaponry that they have of all just good players, and then Jacobs being their great player, I don't think that's going to be like a reason why they don't win, is because they don't have this elite alpha receiver.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just personally, for a playoff game, I don't. They're so centered on Josh Jacobs. Or if Josh Jacobs has a bad game, I mean, it's possible that the Green Bay offense could be severely neutralized because of it. Right now, everything is filtering through their run game. And yes, Jordan Love is a very good quarterback. I like Jordan Love. I love the progressions he's made, but I'm not sold on this team. And I'll put it to you this way: if it stands as is and Tampa hosts Green Bay wild card weekend, I feel a lot better about taking Tampa to beat Green Bay. I like that spot for Tampa. I think the Rams can beat Minnesota again. I think, to be honest, the Rams can beat Detroit. I mean, so, kind of wrapping up to the theory why I think taking Tampa and LA both 14-1 to win the NFC, because there is the good shot that they can meet each other, but there's also a better shot that one of them squeaks through and ends up playing a Philly or a Detroit or a Philly or Detroit in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, then you have a head job, because if it's 14-1, even though those other teams would be a favorite, like you can still get a little guaranteed coin. So I can never hit on that. But I guess the final point, though, that I will make in the NFC, even Washington included, you want to call it the bias here, any of these teams can beat any of these teams. Yeah. Now, I do agree that Washington is the worst of the bunch that's currently in the playoff picture and will probably make the playoffs. But that being said, any of these teams, and I know it's football, so it's any given Sunday, but I know there are some times where, like, you put your nuts on your table, you're like, there's no way this team can beat this team or actually win the NFC. Like, I think this is a rare situation where in the NFC, like, all 7 teams currently you can make a compelling enough case for any of them to actually win it.
Yeah, I do too, especially now with Detroit's wrinkles. But that's all the time we have for today. Appreciate everybody hanging with us. Best of luck this weekend on your bets. And as always, see you next week.
Yes, sir. See you, everybody. Good luck.
It's a pleasure. Thanks a lot, everybody.